A local man nearly had his property sold out from under him in an elaborate real estate scam. On your side's Kristine Lazar tells us what happened and why this type of scam is just growing in popularity right here locally.
Yeah, you know, we have a lot of real estate scams. We've got leasing scams where people will lease an apartment that isn't actually up for lease and take that money. We also have real estate scams where, you know, people will have their properties literally sold out from under them. So people really need to be mindful with what's going on and take steps to protect themselves. Now, the FBI issued a warning to the public last year about those real estate scams after a 64% increase from 2020 to 2021. One local man almost fell victim until his nosy neighbor, and I say that in the best way possible, stepped in. That old phrase, know your neighbors? Well, George Dance feels incredibly lucky to know his.
My guardian angel, my neighbor, Maribel.
Maribel Munoz was doing dishes last month when she looked out her kitchen window and noticed strangers standing in her rose bushes, taking photos and scoping out the vacant lot next door, owned by George.
They were like 3 people taking measurements, and that's when I called yours.
She called me and said, George, are you planning on constructing on it? I said, no, why? And she said, well, there's people measuring the place off.
George dismissed the trespassers as nosy neighbors, but Maribel wasn't so sure. She's a licensed realtor, so she looked up George's property and found that it was listed for sale on Zillow.
It's absolutely like right away say somebody is doing fraudulent sale here.
George called police and the listing agent.
According to the broker, it was an escrow, a cash-only sale, which requires no funding from banks, so it would close any day, the broker said.
George was days away from having the title of his mortgage-free investment transferred to someone else.
My investment gone. It's that close.
LAPD Detective Brian Kalickia is handling George's case. He says the fraudulent deal was done over the phone and with electronic signing.
All property information as far as title vesting is all accessible. It's all public information. So there are people that know how to search for this information and how to obtain it. And from there, all it takes is for a little bit of internet research to gain enough knowledge about that person to impersonate them.
In order to better protect your property, Kalickia says to put it in a trust or put several people on the deed, so it requires multiple signatures for a sale. A lien or a mortgage on the property also makes it less desirable with thieves. Finally, the LA County Assessor's Office encourages all property owners to sign up for its new email notification system, which alerts them of any lien or grant deed recorded against their property much quicker than the 30 days it takes to be notified by mail.
You'll get an email within 48 hours, which will give you a much more of a head start to respond and to know whether or not that recording is legal or not.
George's case is still under investigation. The LAPD is trying to track down the scammer. The detective tells me real estate scams like this have skyrocketed since the pandemic, especially because we moved to everything online. So you can do electronic signature, you can do it all over email, and no one really thinks anything of it, especially when you have out-of-town buyers for investment properties like this. And the one thing we didn't really talk about in that story is that you also have another victim, right? The person thinking they're buying this property. So now they, you know, give the money to the scammer, their money's long gone, and George is like, I'm sorry, that's my land. So, you know, then you probably are locked into a court battle, lots of money spent, and the scammer walks away free and clear with all that cash.
Wow, and most of us don't have a neighbor quite like George did. So
yes, he's very lucky for Maribel. Know your neighbors, especially like with George, he's not physically living on that property. So if you own property, make sure that your neighbors know, hey, if I'm going to sell, I'll let you know.
Exactly, exactly. Great advice. Thanks so much, Kristine.